Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Fight Rotunda, and if you're here for the peer track workshop, this is the right room to be in. And I am going to be your moderator today. My name is Donna Costa, and it's my pleasure to be your moderator for this workshop, and you'll see why when we get started. But my job is to go over a few housekeeping items so that way you'll know what to do in regards to CEU. So because I want to make sure I give it to you correctly, I'm going to read it for you. All right, so if you're attending the conference to receive CEUs, please listen carefully. All registered attendees seeking CEUs must remain for the entire duration, must have signed in with the proctor, and the proctor is actually at the door. Proctor, could you please raise your hand? Rose? Rose, could you please raise? Rose is our proctor. So if you have not signed in, please sign in with her. You must obtain an evaluation from her prior to the start of the session. And at the end of the session, you'll need to check back in with her to turn in your completed evaluation to receive your certificate. So you'll walk out with your certificate today.
Yay!
Yes.
Thank you.
Each workshop session is approximately 75 minutes long, and you receive 1.25 CEUs for the session. These are issues to LPCs, LMFTs, social workers, and psychologists. Each attendee can qualify for a total of 3.75 CEUs today for attending 3 workshops. We're grateful to have the support of NAMI Texas and the Bexar County Recast Project for making these CEUs available. Again, all registered attendees seeking CEUs must remain in the session for the entire duration. Upon completion, when you return your completed evaluation form, you will receive your certificate. And so now it is my pleasure to introduce our speakers for your workshop today. Kiley Clark is our first workshop speaker. Kiley is a certified peer support specialist and a certified peer support supervisor and a certified intentional peer support specialist and a certified recovery coach and an advanced RAP facilitator and meditation teacher. Kiley has worked for over 18 years in social services, and he's worked for communities formerly known as San Antonio Clubhouse for almost 6 years. Kiley lives with his wife and 2 dogs in Floresville, Texas. Thank you, Kiley, for facilitating this workshop. Our next presenter is Julie Marschlowitz. Oh my goodness! Oh my goodness! You guys don't have a clue.
What was the last name?
Marschlowitz.
Marschlowitz.
I practiced this over and over last night. Oh my goodness. Julie is a certified mental health peer specialist and a certified family partner, a NAMI facilitator, and a mental health advocate and community outreach volunteer. Julie is passionate about her faith, her personal recovery, people and community outreach. Whether it's working at SA Connection Center or volunteering locally or online, her mission is the same, sharing love, hope, and wellness to a hurting world. Julie is a group facilitator, a writer, a speaker, and a deaf and hard of hearing advocate with lived experience. She continues to live a life of recovery and renewal through her Christian faith, personal ministry, and rejoice in hope. So I welcome you to this workshop, and thank you, Kiley and Julie, for being our presenters today.
So I got an old joke, I'm going to try it on you. So I parked about 6 blocks from here, and when I was walking, I stopped a guy on the street, and I said, "How do you get to the Tobin Center?" And he said, "Practice, practice, practice." So today we're going to talk about a wellness practice called RAP. How many people have heard of RAP before? All right, so I'm going to tell you how it saved my life. And let's see if we can get this thing to work. I might have to. Where's our? Oh, there? No? Yeah, it's working now. Okay, cool. Maybe I wasn't, maybe I'll try it on this side. So I can't sit down, I'm a walker, I gotta be up on my feet, so. The title of this is Finding a Recovery Practice, How I Learned to Participate in My Own Wellness and Recovery. How many people know you have to participate in your own wellness and your own recovery? I didn't know that for a long time. So just a word from our sponsors. So me and Julie worked for Formed Communities. It was called San Antonio Clubhouse for 19 years. The San Antonio Clubhouse still exists, but it's just one program of Formed Communities. The reason why they had to change the overall name is because all these different programs started popping off, and we're calling everything the San Antonio Clubhouse, which didn't make sense because the Clubhouse is one specific program. So me and Julie work for the Connection Center, but if you want to learn more about Formed Communities, you can just go to the website, formedcommunities.org. I won't spend a lot of time talking about that, but I got the commercial out of the way.
Sorry.
I will tell you these slides are just for me to look at. I mean, if you know, I'm going to be going through these slides pretty quickly. If you want to stop and take a picture of something, just let me know. All right, so I want to say that I invited Julie today because I wanted to self-advocate and ask a friend to come keep me company today and help me in case I drop the ball, she can pick it up and run with it. So thank you so much, Julie, for being here.
You're so welcome.
How do you say welcome in sign language?
You're welcome. I would say like that. So we'd say thank you and then welcome.
How do you say happy?
Happy.
How do you say nervous? I'm happy
say
that you're here because I'm always a little
but
bit
it's not
nervous. So like I say, these slides, you know, these are something for me to look at, but in reality, what I most want to share with you, and me and Julie have facilitated rap many times together, and the main thing that I want to express to you is like where I came from and why rap became so important to me, right? So in 2005, my first wife, she said that I needed to get out of the house because she was tired of being with an alcoholic, and she was taking my 3 daughters, and who can blame her? My life was falling apart. I was in my addiction. I wasn't making good decisions, and so what I did was take all my clothes and put them in a trash bag, and I put them in the back of a little Nissan truck. And the best idea I had was to drive to West Texas, and hopefully I would get a job in the oil field, and hopefully they'd give me a place to stay if I got a job. Well, somewhere on I-10 at midnight, in the middle of nowhere, I was pulled over by a highway patrolman, and I got yet another DWI. And I'll never forget it because I got taken to the small town jail. And they put me in a cell with the general population. There was all these bunk beds and people were asleep. They gave me a blanket. I couldn't find a bed, so I laid down on the concrete floor with my little wool army blanket. And I laid there and I drifted off to sleep. And about an hour later, sometime around 1 a.m., 2 a.m., I had a full-blown mental health breakthrough. And I say breakthrough because I felt everything that I had been self-medicating about. Shame, guilt, remorse, the pain of being raised by an alcoholic father, the pain of being raised by a mother who had undiagnosed anxiety disorder and PTSD from the terrible things that happened to her in her childhood. And everything that I did to people to hurt them, and everything that people had done to me, I felt in that moment in that jail cell, and I started screaming. I was as sober as I'd ever been in my life. And I felt like my skin had been ripped off and like my nerves were exposed. And the weight of all my decisions in my past landed on me and I started screaming. And I'll never forget, I see it like I'm outside of my body watching it. The guards came in there and they flipped me over and they hog-tied me. And they handcuffed my wrists together and they handcuffed my ankles together and they put a chain between them and they carried me out like a sack of potatoes. They opened up a seclusion cell and they picked me up and they threw me in there. And I just kept screaming. I screamed until I lost my voice. And then I guess I fell asleep because the next thing I remember is them unlocking the door in the morning and they said, "Are you finished?" And I said, yeah, I'm finished. And so they unhandcuffed my wrists and my ankles and they stood me up. And I was sore and I was tired and I was hoarse from yelling all night. They handed me a plate of food, breakfast, and they gave me some orange juice and some coffee. And they led me into the general population cell. And when I walked back in there, everybody was awake and there was at these 3 chrome tables. And everybody was sitting there at these chrome tables eating. And there was only one spot that was still open. And so I took my tray and I sat down at that spot and I started eating my runny eggs. And the guy across from me said, "Are you just getting in?" And I said, yeah, I'm just getting in. He said, "Well, you're lucky you weren't here last night. There was some crazy guy screaming all night." And I got my one phone call and I called my wife that had kicked me out and begged her to come get me. And I would like to say that was the end of my drinking, but it would take some time still before I would walk into a 12-step meeting and tell them I'm dying, I'm sick and tired, I need help. And what was funny is when I walked into this 12-step meeting, they said, "You're in the right place. We're all going through the same thing. There's even a book about it. And guess what? I want you to come back every night, 60 meetings in 60 days. And guess what? You need to find a mentor, a sponsor. And I'll do you one better. They have these 12 steps. And you're going to work these 12 steps. And you're going to participate in your recovery. And you're going to work with a mentor. And you're going to keep coming and hanging out with us. You're going to read this book. And you might live." And I said, "All right, I got something to do. I got a target to shoot at." So I did find a sponsor. And the sponsor was a wise old man. He said, "I've never told anybody this. I've sponsored people for 15 years, and I've never said this, but I think you should probably go get a mental health assessment. Because there's some things that I'm seeing that isn't necessarily just about alcoholism." And so I did. I made an appointment. I went to go see a doctor. The doctor said it was probably this diagnosis or this diagnosis, and I never forget, he reached up and he opened up a cabinet, and it was full of medication that was given to him by the pharmaceutical companies, like the drug reps. And I'll never forget, he pulled 2 boxes of sample medication down. He had this plastic bag, he dropped them in this plastic bag and rolled it up and handed it to me. And he said, "Come back and take these and come back in 30 days and we'll see if you're any better." The reason I tell you this story is, it took me almost 13 years to find RAP, which is a recovery and a wellness practice. And I look at the contrast between when I first went into that 12-step meeting, they gave me something for me to do. They gave me something to work on. They gave me a target to shoot at. And they told me if I was going to live, I had to participate in my own recovery. When I went to see the doctor, I got a diagnosis and some sample pills. Can y'all see the contrast in those things? Nothing to work on, nothing for me to do, no responsibility, didn't tell me about NAMI or anything, you know? And this is just a general physician. I know it's different all over the place, but this was my experience. So it would take me 13 years before I would find out that I could use the same type of practices that I've been using for my sobriety for my mental health. I could be working a practice for my mental health. Amen?
Amen.
You can applaud. While y'all flying, go drink a water. You just started everything. I said a lot of words. So we're going to be a flat rock that is going to skip across the ocean of rap. Rap is actually, seminar 1 is a 3-day workshop. And I took a 3-day workshop. I got turned on to rap by a friend of mine that works at the San Antonio State Hospital named Kiley Palmer Eisenhower. And she's been a blessing and a mentor to me as a peer support specialist. But she turned me on to rap. I took a 3-day seminar, then I immediately went to a 5-day training in Toma, Wisconsin. There's no need to go to Toma, Wisconsin unless you're going to a rap seminar training. And then I immediately went to Westchester, Pennsylvania to take another 5-day training for the rap facilitator training. So we're gonna breeze through some of these concepts that are in rap. And when I say rap, I mean it's a certain curriculum that you can implement into your life and create action plans for how you want to feel, okay? Everybody on board?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, so the brief history of rap, it was created by Mary Ellen Copeland. Her mom had been hospitalized. When Mary Ellen Copeland was a kid, her mom was put in the state hospital for 8 years. Mysteriously, her mother got better and was discharged from the hospital, came home and lived a productive life. Her kids had already grown 8 years, and so she had a hard time fitting, and then she had the stigma of being in the state hospital and all the stuff that comes along with it back then, probably in the 50s or 60s. So later, Mary Ellen Copeland started showing symptoms of mental health herself. And when she got a diagnosis, she went to her mom and she said, "Mom, you were in the state hospital. How did you recover and get out?" And her mom said, "I started focusing on the other patients. I started helping them like I was working there. I started helping the staff with all the daily rounds and things. And I started a support group, and she started focusing on the other people." And so those were some of the wellness tools that she implemented in her life, and she eventually got well, right? Or she got discharged. So Mary Ellen Copeland, her daughter, said, if mom can do that, and mom can kind of overcome some of these symptoms by doing things, I can probably start doing things in my life to overcome what I'm going through. And so with that, she started a small group of people that had achieved long-term non-hospitalization, working a job, doing various things, and staying well. And with that group in 1997, they put together something called WRAP, Wellness Recovery Action Planning, the curriculum. There's going to be a test on this on the end, so you might be taking notes. All right, wellness and recovery. So it's interesting, we throw these words around, obviously, like at the state hospital, it used to be called the asylum, and they said, we're not going to call it the asylum anymore, right? And then I still see people use the word mental illness, and people have different feelings about that. In RAP, we just talk about the positives, and we stay away from negatives, and we talk about recovery and wellness and positive things. We don't go towards our illness story or the negativity. We think that anybody can recover, get well, and stay well. So when I hear wellness and recovery, some of the things that come up for me is living my best life, being able to. I used to not be able to do planning, set a goal, and get there. Sometimes I would register for something and want to do something, and the closer I got to it, I started getting cold feet. Then I'd make up some lie to myself in that group why I can't do that thing. You don't know how many times I did that. Today, if I set my sights on something and I register to take a training or a workshop or a class, I will generally show up and do it. And so that shows to me that I'm living in wellness right now. Julie, I've been doing a lot of talking. What comes up for you around wellness and recovery?
All right. Hey, Friday, thanks. And thank you, everyone. So what wellness and recovery means to me, when I just think of it, without any script or anything, I think of safety first. Because for me, being able to even take that next step, I want to feel safe in my environment. I want to feel safe with who I'm with. And so that's kind of the first thing that comes up. The next thing that comes up for me is, of course, getting a good group and knowing what do I need to work on. What kind of recovery am I talking about, you know? So, and I couldn't identify that for quite a long time. So being able to be assertive enough and have enough self-esteem and confidence was the next step, because I couldn't do anything else without that. So my wellness and recovery really does depend on how assertive I am with my life and my mind, my body, and my spirituality too, because I know I can't do any of that without God. So that's me, and that is definitely what is helping me with my recovery.
Appreciate it, Julie. Thank you.
Thanks.
You'd be surprised when somebody goes to a rep seminar one, that's the first time they've ever heard from anybody that they can get well and stay well. It's funny how cancer, you can be in remission from cancer. You can lose the phenomena of craving for like alcohol or heroin or crack. But they say if you get a diagnosis, you're always going to be that diagnosis. You're always going to suffer from these symptoms. I can tell you straight off, that's a lie. You know, pills don't teach skills. I have learned skills to stay out of that depression, skills to stay out of that anxiety. I've healed some things from my childhood. I'm getting better. I go long periods of time without the depression and the anxiety. So I keep going into remission from this illness they say I have. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And you'd be surprised when people go to rap and they hear that for the first time. They said I'll always be sick. I'll never have my own apartment. I'll never get married. I'll never have a job. I'll never, whatever those things are. All right, so in rap, Mary Ellen Copeland, she got together this 120 people that were experiencing long-term wellness, and all 120 of them were experiencing 5 key things. And they didn't call them these things, but they created these baskets. And somebody would say what they were experiencing, and Mary Ellen would put them in one of these 5 baskets. And what they decided to call those baskets were hope, personal responsibility, education, self-advocacy, and support. And we're going to talk about some of those things in a second, okay? Well, we can just read the first one. So it says, we all experience some sort of life and health difficulties, such as mental health challenges, addictions, loss, diabetes, or aging. Yet we can get well, stay well, and go on to fulfill our life dreams and goals. So that's the definition, one of the definitions that RAP has for hope. So let's talk about hope. So I just said that I'm experiencing remission, right? To stay in remission, I have to actively participate in my wellness, right? Because I know I'm going to get hit with that feeling of hopelessness, sadness, things that days I'm not going to feel motivated to do anything, right? So on the days that I do feel hopeful, I'm reading self-help books. I'm watching positive videos. I'm going to support groups. I'm reaching out to supporters. I'm taking classes. I'm doing everything I can do while I'm feeling energetic. And I've learned by doing that. So they say that successful people are lucky. But successful people will tell you when they suited up and they showed up and they worked hard, they were in a position for luck to happen to them. Does that make sense? So on the days that I'm feeling hopeful, if I get out there and suit up and show up and work hard to do things, it's more frequently that I feel that way, that I feel hope. And the time between when I feel hopeless and then I feel hopeless again stretches when I work hard. Does that make sense? Now, I'm not saying that this is for everyone. I'm not saying that everybody can do it. Some people are just getting their diagnosis or they're struggling with various things. But I'll be honest with you, I've seen miracles. I'm surrounded by miracles all the time. I have friends that are voice hearers, and they're still hearing voices. But they're living their best lives. They're working as peer support specialists. They're married. They're raising kids. They're doing everything. I know a lady who's a great facilitator, And occasionally she has the belief that she's pregnant with the next Messiah, that she's pregnant with Jesus. And so what she does is reach out to her supporters and say, can we do a reality check here? I'm having this thought that I might be pregnant with Jesus. How likely do you think that is? And they'll say, yeah, we've talked about this before. This seems to be, a common thing. I personally don't think you're pregnant with Jesus. But I understand that you might feel that way. And she said, okay, well, great. I got to facilitate in Austin tomorrow, and I just keep thinking about this being pregnant. I know I'm not pregnant, and even if I am, it's probably not Jesus, but thank you for reality checking. So she uses her supporters to stay well. She's living her best life, she's working, she's raising kids, she's doing great things, and has this other thing that she's learned to cope with, or build skills to interact with, right? All right, so we talk about creating personal responsibility. It's almost impossible. If you're a social worker, raise your hand. If you're in any kind of mental health services, raise your hand. Is it likely to help somebody who's not taking personal responsibility over their own lives? Who would like to share?
No.
Go, tell me what you think.
I think that you could try, but what you find, because at the end of the day, it's up to them and they want to receive it.
Thank you. The microphone. I forgot your first name? Tila. What, have you had some experience with trying to help people that aren't willing to take their own personal responsibility in it?
Definitely, as a woman who works with, recovery issues. It's a struggle on my part, but we can't want it more than they do. But we're here and we're ready when they are. And just kind of conveying that when you're ready, we're here. We can't do the work without their buy-in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah, and so it's hard to give that to somebody, right? And we're all, from my own stepson right now. My stepson is struggling a lot, and the only thing that I can do is fan the flame of his dissatisfaction. In other words, all I can say is, when you're ready to start making choices, like right now you feel limited, like your life is limited. And I keep hearing you say that you're dissatisfied with your life, and I'm willing to help you find resources, but you have to want it. Mama prints out all kinds of resources, and Mama wants to call people, and Mama wants to drive him over to it. But until he wants it, and he's coming to me or Mama and saying, hey, can you take me to a detox? Can you take me to a rehab? Can you take me somewhere? There's very little that we can do to force it. We can't force wellness on people, right? Ma'am, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I had a question. Maybe this is not the time and presently, but maybe some of the difficulty that I face, and my daughter faces too, the fact that you're right, they don't want the help, but sometimes the mental illness or whatever they are, they can't see them. So you can say I'm the way they want it, but part of what they have cannot allow them to see.
Absolutely.
So that is the hard part. So what part you just say, well, I'm going to wait until you want it. That might never happen.
Right.
So they can't get that.
Right. Well, so I'm going to leave 15 minutes at the end, and I want you to repeat that question, and we'll do some group wisdom, and we'll discuss that, okay? One thing I can say is, if it's a crisis or there's some, like a hospitalization or something that has to happen, you might have to do that thing, right? And sometimes people may never see that they need help. But when they do, that is the time to take action. And say, now you're motivated to do this thing, you want some help, I'm here to help you, right? And you're right, sometimes people have to be forced into hospitalization or forced to see a doctor, forced, I don't know. It depends what the situation is. This is for people that have some insights and are willing to implement some kind of practice into their life. But I want to come back to that question at the end, okay? Thank you so much. Julie, how have you taken personal responsibility in your life?
Well, thank you so much for asking. personal responsibility, I get really angry sometimes because I don't want to have to take responsibility for myself. I want others to care for me and baby me. Right, Donna? But that didn't happen. Well, it stopped happening when I got sober. And so I still struggle with that. I still struggle with personal responsibility. But my personal responsibility, like Kiley said, you know, I suited up. I started to go to AA meetings. And I continued to go to AA meetings, and I was mad. But I took responsibility. And I continued to work. And I started to get, I found out all about the free clinic next to my AA meeting. And so I started to get help. I made a safety plan. And that was a big, huge one. I made a safety plan for myself and a safety plan to escape my household situation. And so, but that was a huge, one of many huge breakthroughs for me because I totally relied on my faith. I couldn't rely on myself because I was a mess. I'm still a mess, but I'm a medicated mess with a lot of support though. But you know, I have my faith, and I'll tell you, that has been the biggest difference in my life. Plus, even strangers like y'all, you know, and knowing Kiley, and being introduced to so many wellness tools.
Yeah. Thank you, Julie. Awesome, thank you, Julie. All right, so education. So Rep says that every one of these 120 people that Mary Ellen Copeland talked to were educating themselves in some way. Whether that was like getting their GED, going back to college, or educating themselves about their own diagnosis, or educating themselves about their medication. Can anybody think of any ways that you can educate yourself? Ma'am?
I like to go on YouTube and pull up this thing called Grace for Purpose, where it tells you things and breaks things down, and then you also learn the Bible too.
Yeah.
And or listen to like little things out Google, like things for stress relief or affirmations, or down. I have a motivational app that I love. When I'm really frustrated, I just scroll that app like for like 10 minutes, and then I start hearing a lot. I'm saying it a lot of positive, and it kind of gets me right back.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah. Ma'am?
I chose to go and receive formal training in education. I had a reality check and started taking personal responsibility inside of the walls of this. My best friend helped me get there because he couldn't help me anymore than to take me to NICS. And I wasn't medically detained, so they couldn't make me stay. And I love Miss Donna. I love that she brightens up when she sees me, but she probably doesn't know this until right now. But back then, I was diagnosed in 2003 with dissociative identity disorder. What made me take responsibility for self was they showed me a recording of me disassociated, and I chose to stay. And then when I was released, I chose to go to school, because I said that I would let that be the last place that told me more about me and my diagnosis than I could tell me and then help teach. And so that's why we do what we do when we speak up for the voices.
And was that at NICS?
It was at NICS.
They showed you a video of you when you had disassociated?
Yes.
And they gave you insight into your own...
Because I got to look at me, that wasn't me. And they told me her name, and she later told me her name. She screamed it out at them to stop calling her Karen. Her name is Lisa. She's
Wow.
a 17-year-old.
And when you saw that, that was a wake-up call for you. You said, I need to do something. I'm going to go ahead and stay in this hospitalization, right?
Yes.
All right, thank you for that. Appreciate it. All right, so yeah, all of those things above, yeah, round of applause. All right, so self-advocacy. So I talked about being really nervous before I do public speaking, and that's why I asked Julie to be here, just to be one of my advocates, you know, be one of my supporters, and she always is, and so I appreciate that. Why do you think that Mary Ellen Copeland, or what do you think it means that these 120 people that Mary Ellen Copeland was working with, they all said that in some form they self-advocated? And in order to stay well, they started self-advocating. What would that mean to you? What does self-advocacy mean?
I
Ma'am?
think that means, you're recovery, continuing the deep work and addressing, conflicts that are within yourself and the people around you.
Okay, thank you so much, ma'am.
And I'd like to add the part of that, speaking up for what you need, asking for it, and searching, and just letting up and saying what you need and not being afraid to say, I need this, help me.
Using your voice and asking for what you need. Thank you. Ma'am?
I was gonna say that, setting boundaries and standing up for yourself efficiently and effectively. And letting people know that, hey, I'm not liking the way this, and I need you to either fix that or we can come to some kind of meeting. Because that's how you start feeling better, your connections and your interactions with people.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yeah. I always say that I used to have people walk all over me, and I would hold these resentments, and these resentments would build up and build up until one day they would just ask me for a stick of gum. I would say, "Get your own gum, you idiot! I'm gonna punch you." And they don't know I've been building up all these resentments over time. And so what I learned to do through rap is to have those conversations early. Like if I feel offended, I pull you aside, like right after the meeting or right after whatever, and say, "Hey, you didn't probably intentionally try to like hurt my feelings or whatever. I just want to let you know that, man, when you said that, you embarrassed me and you kind of hurt my feelings." And 9 times out of 10, they're like, "Oh man, I didn't mean to. I wasn't trying to hurt your feelings or whatever, right?" So I started self-advocating before I built up those resentments. Julie, have you ever self-advocated?
I'm still learning. Yes, I have, Kylie, but you know, it's taken me a really long time to learn how to self-advocate because of the inside secret anger that I have and never feeling that I was worth it. And today I really have learned something different, not just today, but in the future, as of today. And today I can advocate for my wants and needs only because I continue to learn that I have worth and I'm learning how to live. And so I'm advocating for myself and accepting that I have hearing loss, accepting that I'm going to need to ask for help from time to time. And that's okay. That's okay. So yes, I do love learning to advocate for myself, but I'll tell you, it's a long road, but you know what? When you start to get on the right road and you can pass those turnarounds, it feels really good. It feels really good.
And rolling and building again.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much, Julie. All right. So every one of these people in the 120, they had supporters in their life. So that's a tough one. There's times that, I'm a peer support specialist. I work with people every day, and I ask them, "Who is your support system? What is your support system?" And they look at me like a deer in headlights on a dirt road in Floresville, Texas. Also, people that deal with substance use disorder, like myself. There was a time in my life where I'd already burned all my bridges. I have one sibling, and he's an older brother. And one of the biggest pains in my life was growing up in our childhood in the home that we grew up in. My brother was like my dad. And so when it came time in my addiction, when he finally said, "You know what, dude, I can't be around you anymore," that hurt. He was my only supporter. Come get me out of jail, let me borrow his truck, let me borrow money, tell me everything's gonna be okay when it wasn't. And when my brother finally closed the door on me, it was very painful. So I had to rebuild all those support systems. It took me a long time to gain people's trust back. It wasn't an easy win, but I finally did. I finally had supporters in my life. I got remarried again. I got my children back in my life. I inherited 3 stepsons. And then I joined the San Antonio Clubhouse and became a part of the San Antonio Clubhouse, and that was a support system for me. So how about you guys? What's a support system for you? Ma'am?
For me, I didn't have a backup, I was the backup, so when I went to my classes, I needed to I needed to get something to live with
Amen. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Ma'am?
My biggest support system, my biggest two, first was my spiritual beliefs.
Okay.
That was the biggest thing because in a world where it felt like everybody turned their back on you, the one thing that I knew I could get right and to make me feel better was God. So that was the biggest thing. And second, it was me. Because when I realized that I tried committing suicide, that didn't work. I tried to like just give up. And I'm not a fucking quitter. Like it sucked feeling like, oh, I'm not getting anywhere. So I had to get back up. So I kept telling myself, you know you don't like being down. You can't die, so keep going. And so that just kept me to look everywhere for tools that I could find, Google, everywhere. So then after with that, I started reaching out to different organizations, just desperately looking for help. And so like you said earlier, that's exactly what I do. Is just go looking for stuff to like retrain my brain from that day. Train it, turn that thought around, get out of that sulking, like you're not a victim anymore. Keep going. So now I want to help other people to come out of that.
Amen. Thank you very much. Round of applause.
Thank you.
You know, we were talking about education earlier, and talking about looking at stuff online. There's kind of a joke about being TikTok diagnosed, like diagnosing yourself through TikTok, right? But the funny thing is, my wife really did. She found out that she was ADHD through TikTok. She was like, "Oh, that's what's wrong with me. Oh crap," you know. And like I didn't know. Like she would come out to the car. We'd be in a hurry, and she would say, "Oh, I forgot my purse." And she'd go back in, and she'd come back out. I got my purse, but I left my keys. She'd go in, and she would come back with the keys. I'm like, "Where's your purse?" My purse. You know, she. And so this is like her whole life. Like she's 50 years old, you know. And through TikTok, she started listening to these people with ADHD and stuff. And she's like, "I need to go see my doctor about this," you know. And yeah, she educated herself. She went to the doctor. She got a little medication, and it's really, really helping her. And helping me. I used to have hair. Every time she had to run back in the house, I pulled some more hair out. You know? All right, so we kind of already talked about rap wellness. I mean, the values and ethics. Rap is just, you know, I'll be honest with you. Like, I lead a lot of support groups, and there are support groups that I go into, and everybody wants to tell their illness story and how bad life is and how bad sucks. And sometimes I'll try to enter in some like positivity and some gratitude and some, let's kind of focus on the good. Like there's got to be like one thing that's good that's happening in our lives right now, you know? And sometimes there's some like pushback. I'm leading this one group on Monday nights. It took me literally 3 months to kind of change the tone of that group from negativity to positivity. Instead of looking at the illness, looking at wellness and recovery, right? So sometimes it has to start really slow, especially if people, they really identify with their illness and they really feel stuck and they've really been told their whole life that it's not going to get any better. A lot of times they don't know how to retell that story or reframe that story, looking at that hope is possible, that recovery is possible. Amen?
Amen.
Amen.
All right. All right, Wellness Toolbox. This is the main part of the curriculum. Identifying, doing some action with feeling better. A Wellness Toolbox is anything that you want to put in that Wellness Toolbox. But you have to associate feeling better with doing that thing. Julie, can you tell us anything in your Wellness Toolbox?
I can. It changes every day for sure. Some things stay the same, but it just kind of depends also on what kind of day I'm having. My day starts off, of course, you know, with coffee. And then after that, I have, I made myself, I found a space because I needed my own space. And that was a huge move for me to advocate for myself. So, honey, I want my own space. I don't like sharing an office with my husband. And COVID taught me so much. So I have my own space, my own office, and I really appreciate that. So that's one of my favorite wellness tools, and my prayer chair. My prayer chair. And I keep my stack of books, which changes all the time. I keep my, I've got my Bible, I've got all my kinds of self-help books. that I've already experienced throughout life. And then I have my little dog. Yes. And he's usually sitting at my feet. And so those are just a few, Kylie, because you know I can go on and on and on. It's quite a big toolbox, but it changes because I'm changing. I'm growing. I'm not staying the same because I know how to find wellness and recovery.
Did you always have that, a wellness toolbox? Did you always know about wellness tools?
Absolutely not. I just turned to tissues for my issues. That's about no joke, because that's I just cried. No, I didn't know any of that kind of talk really until I met you. I didn't really have that kind of talk. I didn't know Mary Ellen Golden. I didn't know anything about wellness and recovery. I knew I was sober. It is one thing to be sober. It's another thing, right, to get past those 12 steps, because there's a lot more steps than 12. And so that's why my recovery, that toolbox, it can't stay the same. Because if it is staying the same for me, that's not always good, because that means I'm probably staying the same.
Thank you, Julie.
Yeah, thanks, Kylie.
Yeah, that's for me too. I was sober, but I might as well be drinking the way I was acting and feeling. I was just the same person without alcohol. I was still not living my best life, even though I was sober. Dry drunk, that's right. Thank you. So in wrap, I'm gonna have to speed up here a little thing. So you can create a generic daily maintenance plan, and one of the things that you do, this is a thought exercise. You write down what you look like or what you feel like on your best day ever. And this is like hard work, but people don't want to do this, but RAP is a written document, and there's all kind of books online. You can go to the Copeland Center and buy different books. There's even a workbook that will help you write your RAP. There's a RAP app that you can put on your phone. But you write down what you look like and feel like on your best day. And it's like I'm making eye contact, I'm joking around, I'm laughing. And the reason you do that is so you can catch yourself when you're not on your best day. It's like that contrast that we talk about. You said, I'm not making eye contact, I'm avoiding people, I'm not joking around. I must be struggling. I need to use one of my wellness tools. Does that make sense? All right. So you write down what you like when you're feeling well, so you catch yourself when you're not. Julie, what do you look like on your best day when you're feeling well?
Well, let's see, and that changes too, Kylie. So, what I'm like on my best day, I can really tell. I usually will talk to myself in the mirror. You know, it's one thing just to get ready, do my hair, do my makeup, but to talk to myself and love on myself, which sounds so weird to say it out loud, but I don't care if I sound weird now, I really don't. Because I know what I'm like on my best days. And it's a really good thing though to find that out. So it usually starts, you know, like I mentioned before, my faith, first thing in the morning, with coffee. Not after, but with. And just journaling and knowing, you know what, I have something to look forward to. So, because I absolutely love my job, and I love community outreach, and I love my family, but I love myself too. I couldn't, yes, I'm gonna clap for myself, because I could not love myself until I really just started to trust the Lord more, and I started to find out, what am I like on my best day? I did not know. I did not know. I learned this in RAP, though. I learned this in RAP. So, of course, thank you, Kylie, for teaching me.
Thank you, Mary Ellen Copeland. All right, so one reason you do a daily plan is like, I heard Julie talk about her prayer chair, which it seems really mysterious to me, but also kind of cool, you know? She prays in the same chair every morning, right? So you do your daily devotionals. So that's part of her daily maintenance plan. She's gonna do these certain things that she found out that the days that she takes time to do those prayers, she usually has a better day. On the days that she wakes up and she's in a hurry and she's rushing and she doesn't sit in the prayer chair, sometimes those days aren't as good, right, Julie?
Amen.
All right, so another part of rap is knowing your stressors. So like, I used to, when I was first sober, I had to go to weddings, I had to go to birthday parties, I had to go to functions without alcohol. I had no idea that that was a stressor. I just knew I didn't want to go. And then the whole time I went, I was like, am I going to drink? Am I not going to drink? I know I'm trying to get sober. I don't know how to act in front of people. I don't know what to do with my face and my hands. When people are talking to me, I'm just going to start drinking, but I can't drink. Oh my God. So that was a stressor of mine. I couldn't create an action plan around it, right? There are things in my life where authority figures, for some reason, I don't know, let's blame it on Dad, but sometimes when authority figures come in, like the boss comes in, I'm like freaking out. But I can create, once I start learning what my stressors and my triggers are, in the first days of my diagnosis, I was having anxiety attacks walking into HEB, but I didn't know they were called anxiety attacks. Nobody even told me what those things are. Once I found out the name of it, I started creating an action plan around how to handle those stressful situations. Can anybody think of something that's really stressful in your life that is like ongoing? Like something that really, I hate to say triggers you, but stresses you out?
Teenage boys.
Teenage boy. Your own or all?
My own.
Okay. Go ahead.
Gossip.
What, gossip?
Get together gossip.
And when you feel that, does it, well, we don't have to go into it, but
Mean people.
mean people, gossip, yeah. What are some other things that stress you out?
Daily work, deadlines.
Deadlines.
Or big things that everybody can be looking at.
Yes. Thank you. Deadlines. Yeah?
My mother's dementia.
Your mother's dementia. Absolutely. Yeah, and you have to be a caregiver, but then you're dealing with a situation that triggers you. And then you're like, I wish I was more compassionate. Why ain't I more compassionate? It's because I'm stressed out and triggered, and I'm acting out of my trigger, but I'm trying to be compassionate. This is my mom, but I'm triggered, and I'm not bringing my best self to this situation, right? I'm sorry, I'm just speaking for myself. Yeah, and so to learn to create an action plan, because you know that's going to be reoccurring, right? Deadlines are going to be reoccurring. Teenage boys, until they get to turn into their 20s, right? They're going to be teenage boys, right? Gossip, you're going to run into gossip, right? She said kids don't grow up until they're in their 30s, right? And guess what? I'm probably always going to have a supervisor walking in the room. I'm always going to be asked to go to weddings and birthday parties. I'm going to have to do things that are going to be stressors. But I can predict them, and now I got action plans for how to handle them, and we'll talk about that in a second. Somebody have their hand up, or?
For me, it would be lack, little, or ineffective communication. And the choice of not communicating.
Okay.
And choosing to get to an understanding. So I learned how to say things like, this is what I heard, is this what you think?
Okay. That's a perfect example of a stressor and an action plan.
Yes.
So what you said was, and let me know if I heard you right. You said that when you're trying to communicate with somebody, either you're not clear or they're not being clear, right? And that's kind of frustrating. And so what you do is ask them, did I hear you right? Is this what you mean? Right?
Yes. So one is people who do not communicate. Like
Yeah.
if they're not coming, don't say anything, just don't come. That's an example of that.
Okay.
And one, miscommunication. So for me, I can't do anything for those who choose not to communicate other than to educate them on how that makes me feel.
Yeah.
And the
Okay.
second one is to try to create a level of understanding mutually. This
Right.
is what I heard, is this what you said?
Right.
Or flip side, tell me what you heard and I can confirm or verify that that's what I said. That way
Exactly.
we walk away with a clear understanding.
And that's all self-advocating, and that's all using an action plan to deal with something that stresses you out. So thank you for that. All right. All right, so we talked about early warning signs in rap. So you learned your stressors, you learned your triggers, you created action plans around that, but still sometimes, even though you got your daily maintenance plan, you're sitting in your prayer chair, you're drinking coffee, you're doing all the right things, life throws you a curveball, COVID hits, or somebody that you know gets sick, or something happens, and it knocks you off your game. One of the things you wrote down, what you look like on your best day, is to recognize what you look like when you're not doing well. And so that's where we come in with early warning signs. So early warning signs for me, I start getting negative. I start thinking a little bit paranoid, like they're gonna fire me. People are talking behind my back. I don't want to go into work today. Maybe I'm not doing the right thing. Maybe I'm not enough. Maybe I'm not doing enough. Maybe, negative, right? So those are some early warning signs like, Kiley, whoa, this is kind of a red flag here. You've already gone a couple of days now with all this negative self-talk. Maybe you need to take a look at that and do some of your wellness tools. Julie, what are some of your early warning signs?
I'll start to shut down, isolate. I don't want to talk to anybody, and I don't want anybody to talk to me. So I just tend to, I'll shut down, and I do a lot of crying. I'll start overeating and not caring, and kind of like you had mentioned, not thinking. I'll start to think the absolute worst. Okay, maybe not the absolute worst, but it will get there. It's the beginning. It'll be the beginning of, oh no, something bad's going to happen. Something bad's going to happen. I can't leave the house. I can't go to work. Nobody likes me. Nobody likes me. And so I definitely can't like myself. So those are the thoughts that will start.
Absolutely. I just need one or two volunteers. What's an early warning sign for you? How do you know when you're not really doing well? You're not doing your best. Donna?
I'm a morning person. I am a bad person. I'm the person that you're sick of, But when I'm struggling to get out of bed, that's one of my cues as to that something's off.
Something's amiss in paradise, right? Not being able to get out of bed. Thank you.
The new person that I am, I like to try to be, I like to talk to people and let them know how I feel. And like you said, advocate for myself. So when I notice that either I'm complaining a lot or avoiding people, I realize that something's going on with me that I'm not facing. Like when my mom said communicating, I realize sometimes I'll shut down because I'm not feeling well, and I don't know why I'm not feeling well, I'm not focused. And she'll be like, calling, I'm like, like I might say, oh, Mom, this is going on right now. And then I'm just like, okay, I don't know what to say. But I don't know what to say because I'm like early morning. Like I'm at that place where I'm not being the new person that knows how to communicate effectively.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a
Hi,
very good
person here is actually 40. I'm a horrible moderator.
Okay.
I just sat here and just was like captivated by this. Is now 1 o'clock.
Okay.
And so I should have been giving you like cues a lot sooner. So I know you want to save time and leave room for questions.
Yes.
Before we let out at 1:15. So
I'll take that question. I'll run through a couple more slides and then we'll open up for questions. Okay. Thank you so much, Donna. Question?
I'm the opposite of morning person.
Okay.
Early afternoon, maybe even early evening.
Okay.
So if I show up to work before 6 o'clock, they know it's on. Everybody in my office, like it's battle station, it's on. But if I can't sleep, that's when I know it's bad.
When you can't sleep, that's a huge one.
Your work will wake me up and I just go to work and at least deal with it. So
Right.
I'm confronting it in that aspect, but they know. It's like they'll flee if I come in before 6.
Absolutely. Thank you. What is your first name?
Jason.
Jason. Thank you for that, Jason. So, one night of lack of sleep, I'm just going to say lack of sleep as an example, okay? One night of not sleeping is an early warning sign. And we're going to talk about using your action plan, actually writing an action plan for when things aren't going that great, when early warning signs are popping up, Donna's not wanting to get out of bed, that kind of stuff. She can create an action plan for that. The next part of the module in REP is when things are breaking down. That's like, it's more than just one night. Now it's been a week and you haven't slept, right? You're going into work and they're like, what's he doing here so early and why is he acting weird? You know what I mean? And, I'm not saying that you act weird. I'm just once again, I act weird if I go to sleep, huh?
You please glow in the dark.
Okay. I don't want to project my weirdness on anybody else.
You're good.
Yeah, so when things are breaking down, you can still turn it around. And then the curriculum gets into crisis. When you're in a crisis, believe it or not, they don't tell you this, but you can create an action plan for when you're in a full-blown crisis. And what that means is you pulled supporters in and you said, I wrote this thing that I need you to do for me when I'm in crisis, when I can't think for myself. I'm asking you, while I'm feeling well, I'm doing good, and that's why I wrote all this, because if I do go into a crisis, can you take me to the hospital? Can you talk to my doctor about the medication? Can you let me go stay at your house for a week? I'm going to ask you to do this, feed my dog. I'm going to ask you to take my cat for a little while. I'm going to ask you to give me a ride to the doctor. I'm going to ask you to let me stay at your house. So I got 4 different people doing 4 different things, right? And I wrote it all up, not when I was in a crisis, but when I was feeling good enough to write that out. Does that make sense? So I work at a mental health clinic, and I know that if you can prevent from going to the ER in a crisis, if you've already got some things worked out to keep you out of crisis and how to handle a crisis, it's better for everybody involved. All right, so we talked about the 5 key concepts, the ethics of REP, say that anybody can get better and stay better. Mental health can go into remission, you can go a long time without symptoms. We talk about a wellness toolbox that you create for yourself, create a daily maintenance plan, find out what your stressors are, because they're going to reoccur throughout your whole life probably, and what's your action plan for dealing with those stressors. What are some early warning signs, like not getting out of bed? What are some action plans that you can put in place for dealing when you start seeing some of these early warning signs? And then when things are breaking down, when you haven't slept for over a week, and you already know that your employer hates you and they're going to fire you, and you spit on the dog and kick the cat. Just kidding, don't do that. Nobody does that. When things are breaking down, you can create action plans around that as well. So what are some reflections? What's some of this material that touched base with you today? What is something that you identify or heard today that you like about this, sir?
Just have a plan of action, I think, that's quite diversity.
Thank you. Plan of action. Yeah?
Like how she has a chair, I noticed that when I don't get up and listen to Grace for Purpose, and also I'll listen to like either Joel Osteen, T.D. Jakes, or Sarah Jakes Roberts. If I don't do that, oh my gosh, like my day is just like, and I'm like, I knew this was gonna. Well, I didn't know it, but I was like, I'm rushing, I can't really listen right now, can't focus. But when I do it, I try to remember what I learned throughout the day, keep it in mind, and it makes the day go through so fun. So, and then also for the early, what was it? When things are breaking down, what I know to do now is to like answer the phone, because literally the other day I was thinking, I don't want to answer the phone, I'm going through stuff, I don't want to explain it to nobody. But then she's like, come on, we're having this, come on, we're having this, come on, we're doing this. And I couldn't just sit and sulk. So get out and keep doing stuff, stay engaged and stuff. I like the toolbox idea, because now I'm going to actually go write my tools down and just like put it in some kind of fun format. So.
Yes, ma'am. Sometimes that action plan is, I'm going to fake it till I make it. All right, what this material, I spoke for a whole hour. What did you identify with? Wait a minute.
There's, how do you determine between being a support person versus enabler? Because I feel there's a very close distinction there. And what would constitute difference?
I'll get right to that question, okay? So this is the Connection Center. I think you already have this website. That's my email address, Kiley@formcommunities.org if you want to email me. And I can send you any material that you may need about RAP. So question and answer, right? So your question seems very similar to this lady back here, right? Ma'am, do you want to stand up and ask that question again? And then I'm going to have you repeat your question, and then we're going to open it up for group wisdom, okay? Ma'am?
I think the same thing, you said, what do you do when you know that the person cannot see that they need help because they have only intelligence?
Yeah. Okay. Ma'am, would you like to repeat your question again?
What is the distinction or difference between being a support person for someone versus enabler for them?
Okay. Thank you.
Because I feel being an enabler is not going to help. So you want to be the support. That's a fine line there. What's the difference?
So I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like these two questions are asking about if the person doesn't have insight in the fact that they need treatment or help, right? Is that one of the...
Could be, yeah.
And you want to help them, God, you want to help them, but you also don't want to be an enabler, and you know you can't force things on people, right?
Right.
Okay, so I'm not the expert. We're in a room full of experts here. I'm going to put it out to anybody that wants to help answer those questions. Ma'am?
Yes, I recently started taking my two children who have ADD to a counselor, and my husband always thinks I enable the children, and this counselor showed me it's not so much enabling them as it is giving them scaffolding. So if I would look at it as what you're doing, is it temporary? Are you that bridge? Are you offering scaffolding until they can reach the point they need to get to? Or is this going to be a permanent, long-term behavior that you provide for this individual? So if you can look at it as a temporary scaffolding as opposed to enabling, then maybe you can start to think, okay, these are the things I'm not going to do long-term. I'm just going to help them through this process.
Right.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Ma'am?
I think as the person with mental illness, I mean, severe or not, hospitalized lots of times, the difference between having somebody who is enabling me to be not okay, who thinks it's fun to trigger me on purpose, to make me the conversation of the room, as it were, and having somebody who is, okay, we know these things are happening, and I'm going to help you manage it. It isn't a project, it isn't a game, it's how they support me emotionally and sometimes physically, sometimes financially even, to make that appointment. To say, yeah, you're not okay, but you're still human, you're still valuable, and we can make this better. There's a huge difference between saying, oh, look at her, look what she does, look at her, here's the wheelchair, or here's the game, and saying, I see this, but I'm going to be your scaffolding is a fantastic description, because sometimes you just need something to hold on to so you can get through this level. And that's a huge difference, because it's enabling somebody who's mentally ill makes it worse.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Ma'am, you got your hand up?
That also is another responsibility. As I was just using an example with my daughter, and I try to stress that I see it as in what I'm doing what I'm doing is taking over, taking charge of what she's doing. Okay? So, you know, I think that's always been the difference between how to judge stuff that I want to take. Is it help her do better, or is it going to take charge of the situation and resolve it?
Absolutely. One of the most difficult things I've ever encountered in my life is the family members, right? That's what NAMI is all about, right? Working with family members and working with people, being a community for all of us that are going through these things, and being a resource for us. You know, what I always tell family members is, and this is my main thing, is like sometimes somebody will bring their adult person to me for help, and I turn to the family and I say, what are you doing for yourself? Like, you're going through a really stressful situation. Are you a part of NAMI? Do you do family to family? Like, what are you doing for yourself? And once again, those family members look at me like a deer on a dirt road in Floresville, Texas at midnight. Me? What am I doing for me? No, this is about my son. This is about my daughter. This is about my brother. This is about my sister. I say, no, what are you doing to take care of you? And there's like a new concept to that. Sarah, did you have something to say? Or?
I was gonna add, there's a common ethic of first do no harm. And sometimes I think it might be best just to be quiet and not try to solve a problem if someone else is not at a place where they can take some responsibility.
Thank you so much. So, go ahead, sir.
Well, I think about that old Bible story about you give a man a fish, you feed him for one day, you teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And I think about that when I think about enabling versus support. You know, I remember one time I got in this deal with my son, he wanted me to pay a light bill and car payment and stuff like that. Well, I could do that, yeah, pay a 1 month light bill, 1 month car payment. That's just a short-term thing. I said, let's sit down and talk about looking at your debts and talking to one of these debt resolution guys, and maybe all those debts paid, and you make a 1 month, one payment a month, and you come out ahead. So that's a kind of a brief example of how the difference between enabling would be paying his car payment and light payment, or support would be
Teaching choices and options.
long term.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Guys, that's it. I'm just going to close with one last thing. So my daughter is an occupational therapist. She works with kids that are, have various disabilities or differently challenged. And I told my 26-year-old daughter, I said, you know about wellness tools? And she said, Dad, after work, I go into the backyard and I become clouds and I notice bugs. And that was like the most zen thing I've ever heard in my life. But I realized that I taught my child wellness tools and self-care, and I couldn't be happier. So thank you so much for attending.
If you are getting CU, please turn your evaluation in at the desk.